Gus, so published on Maine, it's known for its very creative ingredient-led menu. How does Australian Wagyu fit onto the menu?
So, not overly dogmatic guy with some of these things, but of course we like to highlight what we have here in Canada.
Yeah.
You know, we have a vast country with a lot of product, and so I've often been known to say, if it has to come on an airplane, I probably don't want it.
Yeah.
But there's some really cool products that we will indulge ourselves in.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes we'll get beautiful bafanuni from Japan.
Yeah.
This Wagyu that was introduced to us by Alex via Legends. Again, I was reluctant at first to bring things from outside of Canada, but it has been well worth it, and it's been appreciated by us, appreciated by our guests, and we're really excited to highlight it at this point.
Yeah, great. That's a very good answer. So,
yeah, I mean, you know, got to defend our...
Yeah,
our,
absolutely. Because it's tricky, right? People expect, it's like, sometimes it's not reasonable. You're trying to run a business, and sometimes you have to look outside your own four walls for...
Yeah, and I mean, it's the fact of we have amazing beef here in Canada that we love to use, but there is also this beef that is better than a lot of the commodity beef.
Yes,
and better than a lot of, like, we have a local Wagyu, which is really good in flavor, but it doesn't have the same kind of fat content. And the production level is not the same, the consistency is not the same. So we'll use it when we can get our hands on. But we know that this product is like so consistent and just like we know exactly what we're getting when we order it, and we know that if we are selling it, that our customers look for that, and that's something that like we can rely on the fact that if I know that I bring that in, I'm gonna sell it and people want it. So we're happy for that.
So, Chef, when you're developing a new dish, where do you usually start? Ingredients, technique, a gap on your menu?
90% of the time, it is ingredients. You know, we look at what is the main dish, what is the main ingredient we want to highlight. That's the starting point. Then we'll also start thinking about what can we use from the pantry, what can we use to elevate it, bring it up. But we also look at the classics. Like, for example, the dish we'll do today, rossini, is like rooted in classic French cooking. And, you know, instead of doing a crouton, we have a bone marrow croquette. And, you know, we still have a truffle Madeira jus, we still have beef and foie gras, and like, it's pretty rooted in classics. So we'll find a lot of things on the menu that start with this idea of a classic preparation, and then it's mutated by the addition of our pantry ingredients, or, you know, it just takes a little bit of a left curve with something unfamiliar.
And you have a really extensive preserving, program here. What are some of the challenges around managing that in a kitchen space?
Space and time. There's something really remarkable about opening a jar of tomatoes from August and January and having the freshness of that flavor, or being able to, you know, right now we wrap little roasted strawberries in pieces of pickled rose that go on as a duck garnish. And you get this, it's from a year ago, and you get this acidic pop, this floral note that like kind of ties in with some of the bitter greens of the radicchio. And it's a way to kind of translate different seasons, and you're kind of seeing through space and time.
Yeah, I love that. And you were telling us earlier about making beef garum.
Yes.
Talk us through that process. So
beef garum comes from the old school Roman fish sauce, where they just blend up fish and salt and age it at a high temperature in these like salt pits. We refine that a little bit more. So with koji, which kind of boosts the whole process. So we'll take really lean beef trim, blend it with koji, water, and salt, and age that. I think we're typically between 3 and 6 months minimum. And it's basically, you know, the same process as making soy sauce, where we've replaced the soybeans with beef as the protein. So it's a way to give this like really rich umami beef flavor, and to again highlight the beef, like just really amplify those beef flavors.
And a good way to use up trim and things like that.
I mean, the more sustainable we can be. I mean, obviously the trim never really goes to waste, whether it's staff meal or like fixed into like a condiment or that. But this is a way to take what would have been a zero-sum kind of thing and then bring it further bolster the flavor.
And a delicious flavor of that. You said lean, no fat content. Why?
So when we're making garum, with those like longer processes, the fat can go rancid. So you'll get a lot of off flavors. So that's why you want to keep it pretty lean. And so we'll typically start that, and then any fat that does start rising, we'll skim that off, and just to keep it really clean. And again, purity of the flavor is what we're after.
So what is it, the Australian Wagyu, that excites the kind of culinary world here? There's a lot of people using it, which is great to see.
I think it's a lot more approachable. You know, the beautiful Japanese A5 Wagyu, that's kind of what everyone kind of looks at and strives, and it has high fat content, where it's not something that you are going to use as your everyday steak. It's kind of like this elite premium thing that you only want to be eating a small amount of this. I will happily tuck into like, you know, 4 to 6 ounce steak with this. Like, I'm going camping this weekend and I'm going to be picking mushrooms, and I will certainly be bringing a piece of this Wagyu with cook on the fire out in the forest. I think what's really beautiful about it is it is a premium product, but it doesn't feel out of reach. It's still something that we can, you know, it's at a price point that we can serve a healthy serving of it. And, you know, I don't need a steak for $200. So, you know, the flavor, the fat content, while still being something that's within our realm.
Yeah, cool. So you got a Michelin star on your hand and on the front, and number 17 in North America. What do you think sets you guys apart? Why do you think been able to achieve these incredible accolades?
Well, number one, I think Vancouver is kind of an culinary destination. We've only recently been getting more international recognition. We have arguably some of the best product available to us. The ocean's right here. We have amazing growing seasons and amazing growing regions from, you know, the Okanagan, the Fraser Valley, Pemberton Meadow. We have a lot of people, you know, catching fish with great care. And then we have the mountains loaded with wild mushrooms and berries and forest botanicals. So great product, you know, to tie that all together in a program that highlights those things, bolsters them with a whole season worth of preserve. And we have this dynamic program where you sit down and have a 30-serving tasting menu. You can have a la carte with your friends and order half the menu and try a bunch of different stuff. Or you can sit at the bar and drink a pint of Guinness and eat some fried maitake. It's so many different experiences, and it's such a dynamic program. So I think why we are not just a date night. It's not a once-a-year place. It's somewhere you can often and have a lot of different experiences. I think that's where we find great success.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing that happened really prominently in New Zealand, where I'm from, is that like our generation of chefs left, you know. So you went to culinary school, then you got out. It feels like everyone's coming home now and starting this stuff. Do you think that's kind of happening in Vancouver?
Well, I feel in Canada in general. I mean, if you look over the last decade, places like Copenhagen, the head chefs of some of the greatest restaurants have been Canadian. I think there was a long time where in Canada, if you wanted to be a great, you had to leave and then come back with that knowledge. And I think I did really well at travel, going to different restaurants, extracting the information, the mud, and then bringing that back home and using that and explore ingredients here. And I think you see that a lot where people have gone, really done exceptionally well all over the world. And then along, you know, they want to come home and they want to start a family here and they want to build a business here because it's so great here. And you have all these people amalgamating all this great stuff they've learned abroad and then bring home and flourish.
Cool. Legend. Thank you, brother.